you should have had that in the original bid that covers the entire month of care for that animal. Like, no, that's on you now. You're not dropping that on me. And so because we felt it, we don't want to do that to anybody else. And a lot of we're people too, right? Like we're people too. It is what has been one of the most mind-boggling things about coming to this industry and taking a forward-facing position is when I go into rooms and people are like, oh, what do you do? Right. After they've already assumed I do business development because I'm like a woman in construction, is I'm like, oh, I'm a general contractor. And they're like, oh, like it's an immediate, oh, like we already hate you. I'm judged.
Have you ever wondered how successful architecture, engineering, and construction companies scale their business?
Or have you ever wanted guidance on how to get more growth, wealth, and freedom from your AEC company?
Well, then you're in luck. Hi, I'm Will Forat.
And I'm Justin Nagel, and we're your podcast hosts.
We interview successful AEC business leaders to learn how they use people, process, and technology to scale their businesses.
So sit back and get ready to learn from the industry's best. This is Building Scale.
Hey listeners, it's Will here. Our mission is to help the AEC industry protect itself by making technology easy. If you've ever listened to our show, then you know that the 3 pillars of scaling a business are people, process, and technology. So if you suspect technology is your weak link, then book a call with us to see where we can help maximize your company's IT and cybersecurity strategy. Just go to buildingscale.net/help.
Today's guest is Sheley Brien, co-owner of Brien Contracting, a commercial construction firm based here in Scottsdale, Arizona. With her over 2 decades of diverse entrepreneurial experience in finance, medicine, restaurants, and media, Sheley brings a unique perspective to the construction industry. Brien Contracting specializes in delivering high-quality general contracting and construction management services for commercial projects, focusing on exceeding client expectations through open communication and strong relationships. As co-owner of a thriving construction company and host of the More Action podcast, Sheley shares candid insights and actionable strategies helping others accelerate their growth. Balancing her roles as business leader, competitive equestrian, wife, and mother, Sheley draws on her diverse background to inspire thoughtful, intentional action as the key to success. Her journey is proof that every step, no matter how varied, leads to future success when grounded in action and perseverance. With all that said, Sheley, welcome to the show.
Holy cow. Well, thank you. I'm super excited to be here with you guys, and quite the intro. I should have, I'll send you guys the short bio for round 2 when we do round 2. We'll do the condensed version.
I like to really get all the nitty-gritty good stuff right out the gate, which I know I'll never be able to hit all of it. But before I ask you to give us the quick summary, or the summary you'd say, I do want to applaud you. I was on the More Action podcast a month ago-ish, somewhere in that ballpark, and it was the best guest experience that I had ever had on any podcast. So thank you so much for being extraordinarily great at that, as well as just a good all-around thought-provoking podcast.
Well, okay, let's just close the show up right now. We're good to go. You guys just throw that out. No, Justin, you were a great guest. It's just a fun conversation, which I know that we're going to have here today. So I'm really excited to be able to pay it forward, come together here virtually with the 3 of us, and let's see what kind of magic we can make.
Totally. So, like I said all this great stuff about you, but please give us the real story, the real origin story, as we say, background, and then how you went from all these other types of business into construction space.
Oh my gosh. Well, I feel like the origin story, like we need the wavy screen to like take you back in time. So a couple decades ago, right? There you go, Justin. A couple decades ago, I mean, it all started in the financial industry. So I was in the financial industry, was there, built a huge book of business, decided I don't want to do this anymore, moved on to the pharmaceutical industry. So I was in the pharmaceutical industry for a span of nearly 17 years, and I was only with 2 organizations over that time. And they couldn't have been more diverse from each other, and culture and all the things. So maybe we'll talk about that here. And then after that, I was done. I don't know anyone tuning in on the show that has ever had a corporate career and just had enough. I had enough. I topped off and I thought, shoot, why not open a restaurant? That'd be super fun. Like, let's go do that. That was a really, fun. I feel like I blacked out like during that time frame. I like to believe I blacked out during that time frame. So after the restaurant ownership, I had taken a previous internet company, tech company that I had created when I was bored in corporate, transitioned that when everything was going on and everything was shut down into a media company. So I did restaurant, then I transitioned over to media, specifically in the equine industry, because as you mentioned, I do show horses nationally, and had a lot of we'll call them learning experiences with a partnership, to then realize that my husband and I, Chris, have both been, very driven in our lives and the things that we've done. And just looking at the construction company that, we were in commercial crushing, to then when he started general contracting, I was behind the scenes, but never took a forward facing role. And we were like, okay, we have so much going on and we can't spread ourselves any more thin. Plus we're parents and married and all the things. Let's go all in on the construction company. And so I had no experience in construction other than like behind the scenes, managing financials and stuff like that. But I was never forward facing on the field, meeting with other people. And ever since we made that decision, we shut down all other businesses, all other things, went 100% all in. It's literally been the best decision that we've ever made, just financially, mentally, growth oriented, everything. So that's kind of my background of getting into construction. It had nothing to do with my education or previous work experience or anything. It just was the next path in that I needed to take, that I'm so glad I did.
Okay, first question right off the bat, because we got to talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
You're a husband-wife combo, which is already a pretty rare thing. Mm-hmm. And I know my wife and I are also partners in our business. Mm-hmm. Boundaries. Are boundaries a thing in your company? Talk to me a little bit about that.
I love, Will, that you call this out to begin with, because it is a hot topic. In other interviews that I've been on recently, everyone's like, oh my gosh, you work with your husband? I'd kill mine. You know what I mean? They're like, yep. No way could I ever do that. And that it's so we're very blessed. I'm going to give you the good and the bad, all of it. We're very blessed because each other's strengths is the opposite's weakness. So we balance each other really, really well. The other thing is that when Chris and I we met almost 25 years ago, and we were together almost 5 years before we got married. We're about ready to celebrate 20 years being married. Okay. Woo-hoo. And wow. So yes, very rare feat, not how either one of us are raised, two divorced family. We're the opposite of everything that we saw. Well, we try to be. Let's put it that way. We know what not to do. Sometimes we do it anyways. But one cool thing about working with your spouse when you started like us. So I do think that we had a little bit of an unfair advantage in the sense that we had nothing when we got together. So everything we've done together, you know what I mean? And when you have that, when you experience failures, setbacks, things that are challenging, you've been there before, the person supports you too. Having your spouse support you makes getting through those really bad failures a lot easier. It's not easy. It's just easier, when you are both in that supportive, more risk advantageous. We like risk. We see it as an opportunity to grow. So that has been something that I feel has given us an advantage to be able to work together now. Now, when it comes to boundaries, Will, I am anti-boundary. I know that social media gurus are create boundaries and only work on this time and don't work at that time and don't talk about business if you're on a date, heaven forbid. Like don't do all these things, right? And that's like another like frame of mind that I don't love. It's like, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. It's like, what do you do? Well, Chris and I both love to talk business. We both absolutely, number one, look at our most important partnership is our marriage, number one. And so we invest time into that. So I don't want to say we aren't boundary driven. Like, we talk business all the time, but it's not the only thing we talk about. However, in order to make our marriage stay like the priority, is that it's an investment in time, effort, money, thought, all of the stuff. And so I shared this with you previously, Justin. I think we talked about, Will, is we have 2 dates every single week. We have a Wednesday night date night, and then we have a Friday day date that we do every single week. Plus we have an executive meeting. So that meeting is 100% business. Our dates are whatever we want to talk about. And a little key thing I will drop for other husband and wife teams that are out there working, or spouse teams, is the Friday day date is clutch. If you own a business together, first off, like, you own your time. So be done Friday afternoon. Before the kids get out of school, you don't have to pay for childcare. You don't have to worry about the kids. Go to a day date, and then you finish up and pick them up from school. It is the best thing ever. And so that is how we've been able to do it. Because I know that there's, parents that don't have family nearby, or it's tough to find childcare. There's always a way to make it happen. You just have to think a little bit outside the box. So boundaries, no, with like we have like some things that are important for us that we keep a priority, but we don't have boundaries in the sense of we don't like, we just aren't like, don't do this, don't do this. Like, if we want to talk about business, that's great, but then we'll talk about what trip we want to go on or something that happened fun with the kids. So it just like lets the conversation flow. And I think just really kind of embrace the imbalance of where we are in our business right now.
That's a good entrepreneurial marriage hack. The Friday day date. That's perfect. That makes tons of sense. When we started talking, I mentioned that you were in corporate. You had your corporate life way before. What have you pulled from corporate that you now that you're running the construction business, that you, one, have seen like, this is horrible, let's not do this, but then also like, hey, this actually works and this makes a lot of sense?
What a great question. Because I'll sit here and I'll be the first one to be like, oh my gosh, corporate America sucks. Don't do it. It's horrible. But I will also say that it was some of the best training, education, experiences that I've ever had. And so when I look at kind of how I've been able to pull a lot of my corporate experience of what to do and what not to do into our business, there's a few things that come to mind. Number one is when I first got into pharmaceuticals, this was like 04-ish. So 20 years ago. Wow. Wow. Okay. Age just really hit me. Might have to update the bio because it's greater than 2 decades. So this was in like 04. In that time frame, the pharmaceutical industry was very different than it is now. Some will say it was worse because it wasn't as regulated. Some will say it was better because it wasn't. And I had a lot of fun and autonomy there. And one of the things that the first company did that I was with is they really fostered intrapreneurs. Okay. So as an entrepreneur is that I definitely have always had the entrepreneurial spirit, but I was raised, go get a job, right? Have a 401k, stay there forever, retire. Like that was how I was raised. And so that's what I did. Not knowing that naturally I had a lot of this like entrepreneurism and like mindset and wanted to grow and build. And when I was with this company that long ago, there was still a lot of opportunity to foster those relationships. So like I did things that the industry had never saw. I was able to come, I came with a plan, I put it together, I delivered it to executives at like the highest levels. They knew me, I knew them, they knew more than me. And I was able to sell them to create certain processes that maybe we tested in 1 or 2 markets that then rolled out to the entire country. So it was very neat because they fostered that entrepreneurial mindset that I already had. And I feel like I could tell you by the end that was not there. And a lot of it is because of the restrictions of that specific industry. However, when I speak with other people, either in the AEC industry or elsewhere, those best team members, those best employees are the ones that feel like they have ownership. And that's truly what entrepreneurship is all about. So I am bringing that over as we are bringing on executive level and all the growth that we're having, is that we want to find those people so that we don't have to, I don't want to say manage them, but we want to give them all the tools to go do what they do and create stuff that we don't even know about yet. So I think that is incredibly important. And I saw both sides of it and I experienced both sides. So I can understand and see that. Another thing, and it comes back to this ownership, and, you know, we talked about this previously, but if you're going to pull, it's really funny because, you know, we're growing right now and we're thinking about the team members that we want to bring on. And I am all about paying for performance. I think that if we want to expect exceptional results, we need to give our team members the ability to do that. And that comes with ownership in their ability to make tons of money, right? Is that it's not just about us making money. It's like, how can we help them make money so that they can go get the house that they always wanted, go on the trip, you know, send their kids to a private school? Like, how can we help them do that? And so by tying their metrics to things they can actually control, I think is one of the best things that you can do for anybody. And it will naturally foster that entrepreneurial group of people, right? And so whether it's a business development or like a project manager, how do we help them have a greater effect on the things that they manage? And so we're constantly asking ourselves, like, how can we do this? We're interviewing right now for a PM and a super. And while we can tie it to certain things, some things are out of their control. And I have been in that position before where, you know, like say in the pharmaceutical industry, where like my quota was some random number that they gave me. And there was like no way, there was like no amount of calls. There was no amount of effort that I could do to get there. And that's a very defeating place to be. And for someone like me, that's like, okay, I'm going to win. I'm going to be the best. I'm going to go. I can do this. I'm going to work harder than them and I'm going to be smarter. And like all these things. And it stopped my brain thinking like that when I had no control in my overall result. So I feel like that is something that we have to tie to every position that we can. And whether it's like a year-end goal, maybe it's like increasing customer service. You know, what does that look like? How do we measure that? There are metrics out there to be able to do all of this. And so I think pulling that over to this is incredibly important. And then the other thing, and this is kind of a funny one, maybe a little cliche, maybe a little silly, I don't know. But in the pharmaceutical industry, when I first started, they would always talk about, and it started to annoy me at the end because I knew they really didn't care, but they'd always be like, we're changing people's lives. Like we are. And there were certain drugs that were absolutely. I was in dermatology. This is your skin, right? And one of the drugs that I sold back in 2004, it's now over the counter. It's so crazy. Put my son on it. I'm like, I know the pathogenesis of acne. Let me help you, son. But this drug, when you have someone that has something on their face or on their skin, it can be debilitating for them, right? And if we're able to provide medication and care to where now they're no longer hiding in their house, they're no longer depressed, they're actually able to go get the job that they want, meet somebody, make a friend, like all of that's changing their life. And I'm going back, the pharmaceutical industry isn't always like this anymore. I will say I'm a little jaded on it now because I just know that the medical system is broken and how bad it is. However, there are certain drugs, there are certain doctors that are incredible, that they are changing people's lives. And that's one of our taglines actually with our construction company is we're changing people's lives. And Chris and I, we just talked about it last night on Thursday or Wednesday night, date night. We were talking about the fact that like cash flow, money, growth. Because now we have so many people that are dependent on us that are on our team that like we are like we're changing their life. Like we are helping them provide for their families. And so it is so important, like what we are doing is changing the lives of our team members and our clients, because ultimately they can open their business. They're changing the lives of the community for whoever they serve, right? Whatever it is. I mean, we're working on a drive-through coffee shop right now. Like, that's going to make someone's day. And that is like, you can't overlook that. You can think like, oh, it's just a coffee shop, whatever, like who cares, or everywhere. It's not one of the big brand name ones, so it's a little bit fun to do that too. But it's like we are making their lives better, and then those business owners can provide for their families. So it's kind of like those things that there's a whole bunch more, but those are kind of the three things I think about as far as being able to transition corporate to running a business right now in the AEC industry.
So, okay. You talked about something that I definitely want to bring up. So growth leads to needing more people. But this can lead to a chicken and the egg problem. Okay. And the chicken and the egg problem is, do you build the team first or do you build the revenue first to support the team? Right? Because if you let's say build the revenue, right, build the pipeline, sell the deal, whatever it is, but you don't have the people for it, you could potentially fail on the project or jobs or set of jobs. But if you don't, if you build the team and you don't have the supporting revenue, you're going to have to lose them. Right? Because at some point, the company's not going to be able to support them. So yeah, it's a bit of a chicken and the egg problem, especially since finding the right people, it's not like they're out on the market right when you need them. So what do? Do you build the team or you build the revenue? What's your answer to that?
Such a great question, and such a relevant question, Will. First off, when you say egg, everyone listening in, did you hear that? I'm like, wow, he's Midwest. Like egg. I can't even do it. I was like, I felt like Chris is from Chicago too. And like, there's certain like cash, like I can't, and I'm like, oh, so I was like, Will. Oh, there you go. Okay. So I had to call that out. Sorry guys. Cause I'm like, wow, I'm an Arizona native. We do not say egg like that. So it was very unique. And this question is so relevant because right now, as far as the growth that we're experiencing, I remember at the beginning of the year, Chris and I, we were going back and forth, right? Like, okay, which one is the right way? We were looking at case studies, other companies, how did they do it, right? Just like trying to understand and make the best decision because we do have so many people, clients, our team that depend on us and we want to do it right. And right is such a relevant term too, right? I want to call that out because it's not right or wrong. It's just, this is the way we're doing it. And ultimately, this is the way. I hate labels. And so what I will say is that when it came back to us, the most important thing when it came to our construction company, because we've had other businesses where I think this decision is a little bit easier to make for us. It all came back to cash flow. We were like cash flow. And in the way in which we run this business, we have so much cash out at times that we need to make sure that the machine keeps going. And so it was all about cash flow for us. So in my opinion and experience in this business, right, I might argue this different for a different business, but in this business, cash flow. So we are all about business development, how we are going to do it. We are approaching it a little bit different than most. And then bringing on the team after. And so that has allowed us also, when you have the cash flow, when we are looking at people to bring on, like I will 100% pay for talent, 100%, without a doubt. Because if they have the talent, the experience, the know-how, and just the overall demeanor to be able to make great decisions in the kind of like long-term approach that we take, I will pay for that all day long. And so I just feel that like cash flow is the way to go.
You mentioned that you had a different perspective in BD. What does that mean? What is you do it a little bit differently, I think is what you said.
Well, it's funny because I used to be BD, right? For pharmaceuticals like this. Yep. Like I did this for many years. When I was in the financial, when I was a financial advisor, I made 400 dials a day. I like knew my metrics, what I need. I was my own business development then too. So like I know the work that it takes I know that the type of personality, because you have to be doing the work that you have to be willing to do the work that no one else will do. I think number one. Yeah. Number two, you also have to like make sure that you get that person that wants, because I think that there's a carrot and a stick. And I don't know if you guys have heard this, right? Like, so the carrot, you want to chase the prize. The stick is you never want to go back, right? So like that pushes you forward. And maybe it's like a fear or a big failure that pushes you forward. And in my experience, when it came to BD people, is you got to find the carrot, right? The carrot people are the ones that we want. And then you got to incentivize it in a way that they can control it and actually achieve it. We want to pay to be able to do that. So when I go to events that are AEC events, and it's funny, a whole nother topic, walking in as a woman, everyone's like, oh yeah, you're the BD person for Brien Development. I'm like, do you not see my last name? Like, in no way. Like, is that like, I'm just a BD person? And I say that with a grain of salt, and I understand that might like ruffle some feathers, and that's okay. But I hope that this provides a little bit of perspective, because when I see certain BD people at these events, I can tell like they're not incentivized appropriately to be able to do the work, like to want to do the work that no one wants to do, right? Have awkward conversations, meet people, follow up, make the extra call that no one wants to do. Like all these things, I can tell exactly who are the great BD people and aren't. And that is something that when we are going to bring on right now, this is something that the way that Chris and I are doing it, this is something that Chris and I own right now. Probably by Q1, we won't own it anymore directly, but is that we want our person to be seen differently. And so because of that, we're going to hire someone probably outside the industry that is going to look at this with a fresh set of eyes, look at the AEC industry with a fresh set of eyes. We're going to incentivize them in a way to drive the behavior that we actually want. And we're going to give them a lot of freaking ownership to go do it. But then we're going to have metrics, right? That how are we going to manage their success and help them take full ownership in that. And so business development for Chris and I right now, to just kind of answer a little bit for you, Justin, like I'm forward thinking on how I'm going to create this role and the person I want to have into it. But for Chris and I, we made a decision at the beginning of this year, instead of going wide, we went really deep in our relationships. And from an owner's perspective, that has been a lucrative approach for us.
That's awesome. You mentioned metrics. Metrics are very intriguing because they tell a tale. They certainly do. Hey, this person is performing to the level at which we want them to or not. But where is that balance that comes to? Because looking at it straight black and white is not always the perfect or right as a path. So how do you view that, and how do you balance the? I want to look at the metrics because they're important, obviously, but I also need to understand the individual in a little bit more.
Yeah, and just relating to like metrics, KPIs, I think number one, I in my opinion, I think there are some that need to stay, and then some that waver a little bit with where that person is or where the business is. It needs to be flexible. If we stay with metrics that we used 5 years ago, that's not going to make any, right? Mm-hmm. Like that doesn't make any sense. The overall market has changed. Same thing with people, right? If the person hasn't changed in 5 years, might be time for a change, either in leadership or the person, right? Like I'm not going to point the finger either way, but it would be either way. And so I think when it comes to metrics and people, there's more to the story, right? And for us, it's funny. I was thinking we do these really cool like media days with our clients at project completion and stuff like that. And we interview Chris too. He's not always fun to get on camera. Like he doesn't like it. So when we have media day, I make him do it. And one of the questions I asked him was, what is he looking forward to in the next 5 to 10 years with Brien Contracting? And his number one answer was people. Is like, we want to be able to develop people. And if the people stay with us, 20 years or longer or what have you, great. But if they only want to stay with us for 2 years, we are going to develop them the same way. We're going to invest into them the same way. Because if they go on and they go elsewhere and they're like, whoever hires them, they're going to be like, wow, we're always going to hire Brien Contracting people because they were trained appropriately. They were treated appropriately. They brought stuff over here. And so for us, it's like the metrics is like the full picture of the person and the efforts that they're doing. Because listen, there are days, and I've been in this, there's been years that no matter what you do, you're beating your head against the wall. And like, you just can't make you just can't make the change. You just can't elicit the response that you're trying to get. And it might be 100% out of your control, right? But if they are doing all the things that are within their control and proof of that, I can't fault them for the result just yet, right? It's kind of like that meme or the caricature where like they're trying to find gold, and like they stop just before the end. And I feel like when we only look at metrics, we stop just before the end, before this person turns into gold. And so I think it's really important to use metrics because they help drive behaviors, but they aren't the full story. So that's how I look at metrics, both in the business. I think the business on the financial side, the project side, like we can look at stuff, but then we can like start asking ourselves. You'll hear, and I think that's what everybody's hopefully picking up right now, is like we ask ourselves a lot of questions. Like, is this what we wanted? Is this the behavior that we wanted? Did we manage this right? What would we have done differently next time? Like we are always asking ourselves questions to elicit thought and curiosity to see what can come from, each experience is a learning opportunity, good or bad.
Okay. So obviously you'd said that there's some wavering in sort of what you're measuring. There still needs to be some measuring. There's we'll call it a gut check. So when do KPIs specifically not work for you? Do you have any examples of like that you've seen where KPIs don't work?
I will say a specific example right now. I don't have one currently with our construction company. I don't. I have a fun one I could tell. Okay, I've got one.
There you go.
All right. I'm like, just give me a second. Let me rack the brain a little bit. So this is a really kind of fun one and hopefully relatable. So social media. Okay, let's talk social media for a second. It's so important, right? And so challenging all at the same time. It sounds like marriage. Sounds like working with your spouse, right? Sounds
social
like
media,
it.
just like working with your spouse.
Just like working with your spouse. Like you hate it, but you love it at the same time. So what we're doing and where I'm leading my team right now with kind of our social media, our marketing, our PR in the construction industry is a little bit different than what has always been done. And so funny because you want to look at the metrics, right? Like reach, engagement, views, like all these different, you want to look at these hard metrics, and the metrics will tell you, right? Growth, followers, connections, subscribers, like these tell you, okay, like we're on the right direction. They can tell you, like what hits home with people, what doesn't, but then you can like look at, are we eliciting the response we want, like a call or an introduction? Like you got to set all these metrics, right? But there is an unspoken metric that I feel like social media, specifically in this industry, which is so funny. And this is where this is like all my corporate stuff starts like driving me crazy, because I fought LinkedIn for a while because it felt like corporate America to me. Everybody was just patting each other on the back. Oh, good job. Thanks so much for sharing that. Oh, good. Yay. And I'm like, no, that sucked, actually. Why are you talking about that? Like, I'm just like, my mind is like, I don't have to do that anymore. I'm not in corporate, right? Where I have to pat all the executives just pat each other's backs, telling them how amazing they are, instead of being like, no, that actually sucked, and I think we could do better. Here's, right? So social media, you think like the influencers, the big names, the big reach, you think those are like the metrics, like, oh, they're killing it. Like, that's awesome. Like, ooh, this one went viral. You hear all these like terms and stuff. And then it's like you have us, who we are doing something just a little bit different. right? You know, it's more tied to one of our core values as an organization and what we're doing with social media. And I'm looking at Chris and I and the company's brand as 3 separate brands. And I look at it 10 years out, what I want them to look like, what we're going to be doing 10 years from now, kind of all of those things. But the coolest thing that you can't run a metric to, and I think engagement is one of those ones that you have to be cautious with, because we'll walk into, Chris does have a brand. It's me and my team, just so we know. Okay. He does not do social media, but he walks into an event and someone that Chris has been in commercial real estate since 2005. So 20 years almost. Someone he hasn't seen in a decade walks right up to him and is like, oh my gosh, Chris, like you're killing it on LinkedIn. Like, God, all your stuff. And it's just like amazing. And I'm sitting there and Chris has no idea what he's talking about because of course he's not the one doing it. And I'm sitting there smiling and grinning because I watch all the metrics on social media to see what topics hit and what we need to focus on. And I'm watching all of this and I'm just smiling because this gentleman who I've known for 20 years too, right? Because Chris and I have been together. He's never liked, commented, or done anything on any of Chris's social media on LinkedIn.
Yep.
Not once. And I'm like, like talking about personal brand. It's not just about engagement.
I think we call them lurkers. I think
it's baffling how many times that I'll be somewhere, somebody I know, like not like a stranger, but somebody I know that's like, oh my God, I love your post. I do a gratitude post. I love your gratitude post. And I'm like, I had no idea you even saw it. Like, it was just like, how could I possibly do it? It's like, I look forward to it every week. And I'm like, what? No love? You're not going to show me any love, man? What's going on here? This is, I don't know otherwise. But no, you're totally spot on there. Like, that's absolutely right. Where there's not a metric for that. How do you put that into a formula? I don't know. Every time I interact that way, I mark it down somewhere. That's not feasible.
Nope. And that's where I think there are some things. I mean, that is proof. That story is proof. What you just shared, like that's proof that you can't make decisions solely on metrics. You can't. They can help influence decisions or changes, but you can't because if that was the case, like we shut down social media. Like we don't. It is not a direct business driver for us, but it is a very indirect brand booster for us. Let's call it that.
Yeah.
Right. So it creates authority for us. It's not like a vanity thing for us.
All right.
Oh boy.
That's a great point.
Yeah, that was a great answer to the question around KPIs. I loved. It's a good version of where KPIs don't work yet. There's obviously something behind them. So okay, all right. What about it? So we talked a little bit KPIs, decision making. There's things that are hard metrics, financials, right? That's a bit harder. And then there's softer metrics because, especially in the business development world, right? It's hard to make someone make a decision faster. Most of the time, it's not slower. You don't want them to make a decision slower, but make a decision faster. You don't know what's going on in their lives or what's happening in the context of what is happening in their world, right? So, would you say, from a metrics perspective, when it comes to people, does what's happening in their lives, in their personal lives, matter? And does it give influence to harder metrics? And if so, how?
What a great question. This is a really, really good question. And it's interesting because I can think back to different periods of all the careers that I've had, where I actually appreciated that what was going on in your life didn't matter, right? It didn't matter. Either you made it or you didn't. So like feast or famine, figure it out. And I can say that in a certain person that like pushed the response. So what immediately I thought about was when I was a financial advisor, I was like one of 15 brokers. The new recruits, think boiler room. I want you to think boiler room, right? I was one of the new 15. There were only 2 girls, the rest all men. And you start out at a salary while you're getting your 7 and your 66 so that you can trade. And then all of a sudden, like, your salary starts decreasing because you should be selling to replace your salary, right? And if you don't make that transition, you lose your job. Like, very easy, right? Very black and white. So part of me actually likes that because there's no guesswork either. I knew what my performance metric was. I delivered, and that was it. I was only one of 2 brokers that actually made that graduating class. Everybody else was no longer employed there, right? And so it sparked something in me in what I could do. I didn't realize like what I could do, right? So I think that sometimes having really hard metrics like that, you can surprise yourself in what you're capable of, right? If you just put your head down and freaking work. That being said, I mean, my health took a major toll during that period, right? That I, had to navigate through. So it's like, I see both sides of it. What I can tell you is like right now, in what we're looking at with our country or our company right now. And what makes me think of it is not even, and this is like a whole nother dynamic, Will, is we work with subcontractors, right? We hold a contract with them. They're not an employee. Very, very different relationship, right? And we are in the business, right, of commercial construction, changing lives. It also means for the people that don't directly work for us. We talked about clients. It also means subcontractors. But we are also very focused on developing subcontractors because that gives us a better pool to play this game with. So some of the things that we will do is if we give a new subcontractor to like our group an opportunity to not only bid, but then win the job, we award them the job. And let's say something happens, they realize we are not change order. Change orders are not a profit line item for us as most construction companies. And then they try to hit us with certain stuff, or they try to do certain stuff, or they leave a messy job site, or, they do all these things. We'll coach them through the first time, 100%. These guys don't work for us, but there is a standard that we hold on our job sites and a level of communication, follow-up, paperwork that they have to uphold for us, a standard. And we'll coach them through the first time and 100% give them a second chance. Once we give them the second chance, that's our breaking point. Is either they rise to the occasion or they fall off. And if they fall off, it's done. Like there's no third chance. We're done because we are changing the lives for everybody that's involved. So that's our other subcontractors. And if this one, because it's such a domino effect, there's such a ripple effect, is like everybody's success is dependent upon the last person in line. And so we can't afford that to happen to our other subcontractors. So I think it is important that we never know what is going on in people's lives. We never know. I think giving everybody a second chance is like a humane and a very like leader forward thing to do, and give them the coaching and the tools to be able to rise up. If they choose not to at that point, you've done everything in your control. It was on them. They aren't able to deliver, and now we move on, and that's okay. And I think when you have that strong filter, you can give those people the second chance, but then you got to move on because there's a bigger picture at stake. And if they can't see it, that's okay. We can't control it. We're just going to move on.
You mentioned not utilizing change orders is a big place where you gain dollars. One, that's different, which could be super cool. One, how do you make that actually work? Because that seems like when things change on a job site all the time. Like that's like, how do you prevent, change orders from happening, or how do you get that to work fiscally?
No, it's interesting you picked up on that, and maybe some of your listeners did too. But for us, we're business owners too, right? Yeah. And so we hire vendors, horses. Like I have a professional trainer. If I start getting nickeled and dimed for stuff, which I've been competing on horses for over 35 years. If I get nickeled and dimed for something, I lose it. Because I'm like, no, you should have had that in the original bid that covers the entire month of care for that animal. Like, no, that's on you now. You're not dropping that on me. And so because we felt it, we don't want to do that to anybody else. And a lot of like, we're people too, right? Like we're people too. It is what has been one of the most mind-boggling things about coming to this industry and taking a forward-facing position is when I go into rooms and people are like, oh, what do you do? Right. After they've already assumed I do business development because I'm like a woman in construction, is I'm like, oh, I'm a general contractor. And they're like, oh, like it's an immediate, like, oh, like we already hate you. Like I'm judged. We don't like you. You're a general contractor. You take extra time. You make it cost more money. Like seriously, I laugh. I like do it on purpose now because I want to see what reaction I get because it's funny to me. What I see that as and what we see that as, like the bar is really low. The bar is really low. What a great opportunity, right? So change orders are probably one of the biggest things that we hear from when it comes to like architecture and design, the client, is that they're like, oh God, change orders. Like, oh, what are they going to go through me now? And this is something where Chris and I have been very strategic in our growth because this is one thing that can kill a relationship. Is, you give a bid because you hired on an estimator that was like new and didn't have the training and whatever, and you give them a bid and it's low. So you win the contract. That's a whole nother topic we could talk about. But like you win the contract as low bid, regardless of quality, low bid wins. And then they start to get to work and they're like, oh, we forgot the ceiling grid. Sorry, here's a $25,000 change order, right? Sorry. It's like, wait, no, that's not how it works. And so we actually spend a significant amount of time. Like we invest more time than most, I will say, in our bidding process. So when we give a bid, that is the bid, period. And if there is a change order, it's at the client's request. So our goal is to never have a change order unless it's at the client's request. Unforeseen situations, circumstances happen, but honestly, Chris and the team and how we have been able to build this, we mitigate that risk because the back end relationship building of actually building the job for what we bid is so potent. And a lot of our clients, I told you, we've gone deep, right? Like deep in our client relationships rather than wide. That is one thing that we are actually hearing back from two of our top very large clients is that compared to other GCs, we're actually saving them about 15%.
Oh yeah. So this blows my mind for many reasons. My brain is crazy now. So spot migration, same thing. We're flat rate, right? We don't nickel and dime our clients. Like we don't go and say, hey, you need a server migration. That's a project. So we do that. No, it's like, no, for us, it's like, no, we are your partner. Which you had mentioned about like relationships. We don't want to go wide. We want to go deep, right? So it's like, that's it. How do you go deep? You actually become a partner with somebody. You actually do things that if you were in a relationship, a meaningful relationship with, you would do. You would operate that way. So that one, I love the synergy, which is the worst business word, but of our businesses. They're very similar in that regard, which I so love so much. Also, I dream big. So when I think of what you're doing, that's what I see the construction industry becoming. Like, why are you doing this? Oh, well, I know I'm going to, have another $100,000 in change orders. So I'll just low bid it. Then I'm going to have a horrible relationship with whomever, the owner is or developer is. And like burn every bridge I could possibly do. I'm going to then like completely destroy my subs or trade partners because I'm just going to try to find the money from all kinds of different places. And it creates this like massive headache, right? Like, and for me, I look at this and I'm like, that's the future. You are building the future. You're changing lives, certainly, but you are building what I foresee is like, that's how it should work, because that's how we work, which is not how the IT and cyberspace works. But like, that's how it should work, because that's what true partnerships are.
Oh,
Well,
this is like outcome oriented versus feature oriented.
Yep.
Like that's what we're talking about, right? What you're doing is you're providing an outcome versus a whole bunch of features.
Features and benefits.
Yeah.
Go back to sales. Yep.
Yeah.
No, and it's funny. So you said it's a couple things that I want to call out. Number one, you use the word should. So should do something. We all should be doing a lot of things,
Sure.
but we're not,
No.
right? So yeah, we should be doing this way. And you know what? Clients should be looking past low bid. They should be. They should actually create a system where they are comparing bids apples to apples rather than apples to bananas to pineapples, right? And being like, who's got what? They should do all that, but they don't. And so I can't control what any of them should be doing. What I can control is what we do and how we perform. And so for us, do we put a little bit dialogue behind when we bid? Do we build a stronger relationship so that we can have discussions about this stuff, or call out certain things that we know others will miss and add as a change order, right? Where we're being forward facing, being like, hey, this is the grid, or this is the door. Like, here's the thing we want you to keep in mind. We're bidding it per plan, but we want you to keep in mind, like, this is important to ask others about. The thing is that this is like a personal, a personal goal of mine is to move past low bid. I'm over it. I'm so over it. Like, seriously, are you going to go like get brain surgery and be like, which one's the cheapest? I just want the cheapest guy that's going to do it. Right. Like, just like, I mean, you can use like every other stitch to stitch me back up. That's good. Like, let's do that. Right. No, I want the best guy. And if that's the most experienced, if that's like the most expensive, whatever, I want the best. I don't care that they're the cheapest. And that is something that drives me insane about this, is the low bid win. And it is mind boggling to me. You would not do that in any other industry, yet people are investing hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars on low bid.
Yeah.
There you go. You win your low bid. Like,
I think I equate it to, that's the Groupon version, right? Oh, you wanted to get LASIK? Use Groupon. That's crazy. I want to get brain surgery? Oh, use the Groupon version of it because you'll save some money. And it's like, no, you won't, because you'll be going to get somebody else to finish the job because it's the Groupon version of it. This isn't shitting on Groupon, but it's just what it is. Yes, I agree. They should. But the point is as a trailblazer, as a leader, right? You do the thing that they should be doing because you know it's the right thing to do. The right thing, right? The right thing to do. And that's what makes you different. And what helps scale. That's what helps, increase revenue and growing a team and doing all those things. And when people think about you in the industry, they know you're different. They know you operate more transparent. They know all of those things, which just creates this gravity effect of like, people just want to be around people that are doing the right stuff.
I mean, that's the goal, right? Like, that's the goal, is like, we want to be playing this game infinitely. And so it's like, how do we conduct our business in a way that aligns with our core values and like our goals too? Of course, we all want to make money. Are you kidding me? I don't work for free. Like, we want to go do that, like do all that. But when you hold your like values and the way that you operate at such a high level, like this is the standard. I'm sorry, we do not bend to our standard. You find other people in the industry that are just like it. And some you move past. We've had to move past because even clients, like, we don't operate in that capacity, right? And that includes like urgency on responses and all of that. Like that, the schedule is much tied to everybody else's, all the key stakeholders' responses. We need those quickly so that we can do our job. And if they aren't responding quickly, well, then that falls on us, right? So then we want to make sure that, everyone we're working with, it's kind of like that cream rises to the top. It just, you keep taking care of what you can control again and again. And you guys, we find those people that are like-minded. and we continue to do business with them.
Not to mention it helps process. Change orders are a giant pain in the ass for everybody. Like they're
everybody.
It sucks for everybody. Like even the person that's making the money off the change order, it sucks. It's not good. It's more work. You have to employ somebody to make sure you manage it. Who's got to sign off on this thing? How many levels of sign off happens? Do I got to go to the owner? Is it just the developer? Do I got to go to the sub? It's like all these different things, and it's just like, yeah, remove that. Get that out of the way. What? Like you're actually becoming more productive. Like you will make jobs quicker, right? Which is effectively what everybody wants. I want the building built faster. Like why do I want to wait on this, right? So there's so many aspects when you just change your billing model effectively, or your model, your business model. It affects so many other things. You can hire better people because we're very conscious of what this is, and I'm not trying to change order you to death. So I love it. I don't know. You got me all riled up here, Sheley.
Yep. I tend to do that.
Justin, we're coming up on our hour. I think we could talk to Sheley for a long time.
Oh yeah.
But I think it's time. I think it's time to do our last question.
For sure. So Sheley, if you could go back 20 years, which we've learned that you were starting pharma at that point, what would you tell yourself to give yourself advice to help your 20-year younger self?
I have two things for you. Okay? I have two things for you. Number one is change careers often. I held a lot of shame. In all honesty, I held a lot of shame when I changed careers because I was like, this was not how I was supposed to raise. Like, you're supposed to have tenure and like all this stuff, and I'm horrible. Like, I can't believe I'm moving careers and changing, and I still did it, but like I held a lot of shame for it. And I think when we reframe it as like, it's time to go get new experience. Like, I've tapped myself out here. I'm so grateful for all of the experience that I have received, and the training and the life that it's provided me. But now it's time for me to go change. And I think that's why it's like, it's so glorious, right? Thinking as a business owner now, like, I'm like, man, I'd love to, because it's easy. This is why we think this way. I'd love to get someone that just stays with us for 20 years and like they just do their job and whatever. But honestly, because it's easy for us because they're already trained. But what's best for us is to actually have new, or challenge them to grow, or put them in a new position. Oh, yeah. Like, that's actually the hard thing, and that's the better thing to do. And so I think just if I were to go back and tell myself 20 years ago, I'd be like, don't hold the shame. You're just getting more experience. All that experience, all those crazy careers that make no sense for construction are 100% part of the reason why we're so successful right now. If I didn't have all those crazy careers and being able to apply this now, business is business. There's little nuances between them, but business is business. And being able to apply all of that right now, I think provides us the perspective to be able to grow and reach the levels that we want with this company. That would be my number one to my 20-year younger self. I'd be like, start Botox earlier. No, I'm just kidding. You got to. But
grow your hair out longer.
No long hair for men. No long hair. No. Okay, so the second thing that I would say to my 20-year-old self, and this is something that we didn't even get to talk to yet, is to always take care of yourself first. So I know probably a lot of the people that are listening into the show right now, building scale, you're scaling businesses, regardless of your industry, you're putting all of you into the business, and there's probably not much left of you. And I'm going to tell you right now, I shared earlier how I was in my early 20s when I was in the financial industry. In just shy of 3 years, I grew a book of business from 0 to $17 million under management in my 20s. Okay. I told you I did 400 dials a day. I was first one in, last one out. And I just got to I was like at that point of like, either I stay in it for life or I better get out now. Right. And I was like, I cannot do this anymore. I was tapped out. And so I went over to the pharmaceutical industry, soon going over to the pharmaceutical industry. So I just worked my tail off for almost 3 years. I actually woke up one morning and I couldn't see out of my left eye. And what had happened is I worked my body so hard for so long, not taking care of myself, nutrition, diet, just relaxing, all of the stuff, is that a virus that most of us have that are, I would say, in our 40s, so maybe that's just me, but a virus that most of us have, chickenpox, that virus comes out as an adult, if you're overstressed, as shingles, okay? Lives in your nerves. What happened is that came out on my optic nerve and it left me blind. I'm blind in my left eye. And so it was really challenging, but it was also the gift I never knew I needed because I was pushing myself so hard. You guys can hear, I think, through the show, just through the times, I'm a go-getter. I nationally ranked horse competitor. Like this is just like, I just am this way. But this thorn that was now left in my side when I was 24 years old, actually, oh my gosh, I just didn't realize it. October 4th was my 20 years being blind in my left eye. Wow. Crazy.
Wow.
Is that if I didn't have this as a constant reminder, I would keep pushing myself where I might not be here. Because my health was like, I was just going. And so now I have this little reminder that tells me, Sheley, calm it down, go chill out, go to the gym, take care of yourself. Like nutrition and exercise are two things that are incredibly important to me, but I always take care of me first. And then when I feel great, guess what? I'm a better wife. I'm a better mother. I am a better leader. I am better for everybody else when I take care of me first. And so I can't say that enough to all my fellow business colleagues out there that are doing the things, still do the things. I'm not saying stop. I'm just saying you got to take care of yourself first. So those are the two things because it's been 20 years.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah.
I love that answer. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
If somebody wanted to get a hold of you, Sheley, what would be the best way for them to do that?
So the best way, let's connect on socials. I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn. LinkedIn, my nemesis. Sometimes it's getting easier. I like it, guys. I like it now. But LinkedIn, Instagram, and I am on YouTube, slowly growing over there, learning a lot over there, right?
All right.
Sparking curiosity over there.
We will make sure we drop those links in the show notes. Is there any other parting words you'd like to say before we say our goodbyes?
No, just thank you so much. This has been a really fun conversation and so great getting to know both of you.
Awesome.
Well, you've been awesome.
Listeners, I hope you had as good and exciting of a time as we had. And until next time, adios.
Adios.
Thanks for listening to Building Scale. To help us reach even more people, please share this episode with a friend, a colleague, or on social media.
Remember, the three pillars of scaling a business are people, process, and technology.
And our mission is to help the AEC industry protect itself by making technology easy.
So if you think your company's technology pillar could use some improvement, book a call with us to see how we can help maximize your IT and cybersecurity strategy. Just go to buildingscale.net/help.
And until next time,
Keep building scale.
Scale.